of the Y in Point Loma. And I will also say Lee is a good friend. Today we will be discussing the power of positive attitude. And my hope is that you join in this conversation. So you have the function, if you go down to the bottom of your screen, there's a toolbar there, there's a chat function. Please join us in the conversation by offering your questions, comments, so that you can be a part of it. So to get us going, Lee and I were talking the other day, and he reminded me of a quote by Viktor Frankl. I think it's poignant and related, obviously, to our topic today. Everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way. That's Viktor Frankl. Lee, I'll give you a chance to expound upon what that means to you.
Well, Viktor Frankl was a brilliant psychiatrist, physician who survived Auschwitz, and his whole family was victims of that. And what he found was that there was two types of people in Auschwitz: those who survived physically and mentally, and those who perished. And one of the things he found was that those who survived were people that were able to find meaning and purpose in their life beyond that. And they never forgot the travesty and the horrific experience ever, but they were able to transcend it and find life and joy beyond that once they sort of allowed themselves to go through the emotional trauma of feeling all those feelings. And so his book, Man's Search for Meaning, talks a lot about how we have the choice, no matter what happens. He says they can take away every one of our freedoms except our last freedom. And that's our freedom to choose our attitude in any given set of circumstances. And he also said a wonderful thing that I like. He said that man's unhappiness is never just caused by circumstances. It's only caused by lack of meaning and purpose in those circumstances. And I think that's what mindfulness is really all about. Mindfulness is a lot about choosing to feel, choosing to act in a certain way that meets our needs, that helps other people, that makes us feel connected and enriches our lives as opposed to things that just take away from our life. And it's really the difference between being proactive and choosing your own outcomes and being a victim. And another Auschwitz survivor, Edie Eggers, who's still alive and in San Diego, actually. And she said she learned one thing surviving Auschwitz, where her family was murdered. She said, victims don't heal.
I'm very fond of Edie. She actually worked in our practice for
oh, no kidding.
An amazing bright light. So our conversation is really about attitude. And I think to start us, it's helpful to have some kind of self-reflection. How do we know what that lens is, that outlook that we see the world within? How do we get a sense of what that perception is at this point in time for us, objectively?
I think there are some things that we can all look at in terms of how are we? Where do we sit right now? How do we show up in our life? How do we show up for others? How do we show up for ourselves? And maybe everybody could just take a minute and think about this. There are mainly 6 areas in our life that we look to as clinicians for how people are in terms of health and wellness. And you can rate yourself 1 to 10. And you might just think a minute as we go through these 6. How are you 1 to 10 in your life right now for each one of these things? Because at the end of this little workshop, we'll come back to that and talk about maybe what we can do and what some of the most important action items could be for dealing with that. So those things are, the first one obviously usually is exercise. How's your exercise quality? We look at quality, both aerobic cardiovascular exercise and also strength training exercise to keep our muscles toned. So how's our heart system? How's our strength training? Are we, most people lose about half of a pound of lean body mass every year after they become an adult. And we don't have to do that. That's all iatrogenic. We do that to ourselves. So how's the quality of your physical activity? We were made to move, and the minute we stop moving, our body starts to atrophy. So right now we're laying down the groundwork for how we're going to live our older age. And how do we want that to look like when we get there? right? So that's number one. Is on a 1 to 10 scale, 1 would be I'm not exercising at all. I'm not taking care of my body physically. 10 would be I'm just doing great. I'm a marathon runner. I just did the Ironman, feel great, have no problems. Where are you 1 to 10 on that scale? The second one is nutrition. And we are truly what we eat. Every cell in our body pretty much turns over about every 90 days, except for a few types of cells. And so we aren't even molecularly the same person that we were 6 months ago. We're a totally different person.
Wow.
And that person is made by what we put into our bodies. And study after study has shown that the healthiest food, the healthiest nutrition generally comes when people eat most of their calories from whole food, plant-based sources. That's the thing that gives us the most nutrition, the most antioxidants, the most disease fighters, the things that amps up our immune response the most. Fruits, vegetables, whole grains, all that type of thing, and adequate fluids. So how's your nutrition on a 1 to 10 scale? Are you eating well? Not only the right type of foods, are you eating the right quantity of foods? Oftentimes people eat pretty well, just too much, right? How's your intake of substances? Are you using substances to alter your moods, to alter your feelings, to help you sleep, to help you wake up, to help you be stimulated and alert? Or can you do that more naturally? How's your intake of saturated fats, of sugars, alcohol? Those are the things that get people most into trouble. So on a 1 to 10 scale, where are you on that nutritional spectrum? Are you a 10? Are you really doing great? Or the other part of the scale? The third thing is stress. And we really all have stress. It's mainly a matter of stress management. How are you at managing your stress? So a 10 would be, I'm really good. I'm just relaxed. I'm who I'm supposed to be. I'm feeling really in the moment all the time, have no real problems. And a 1 would be, boy, I'm just stressed. I'm right up to here. One more little thing we say, it's not the lightning bolt that strikes from afar. It's the shoelace that breaks with no time left. You know, it's that last little straw that breaks. And then you have the big Vesuvius where you just totally erupt and break down and have a decompensation. So where are you on that stress scale? Are you 1 to 10? The fourth thing really is relationships. How are you with your quality of relationships? A lot of the studies about happiness and fulfillment, meaning, quality of life, not only what our immune system is like and how our immune system functions to protect us, but really how long do we live? And study after study has shown that one of the biggest qualities statistically in terms of determining someone's lifespan is the quality of their intimacy and the quality of their human relationships. And then the next thing is sleep. How is your sleep? 1 to 10. So if relationships is just great, I've got at least 3 people in my life that I can tell anything about me to and not feel judged. And my daughter had a great quote one time. I had a 6th grade teacher call me and said, boy, you should hear what your daughter said in class today. We're talking about friends and what is a friend? And your daughter said, I think a friend is somebody that whenever you're with them, when you leave that encounter, you always feel better about yourself. I thought, wow, what a wonderful thing to say about a friend. So how's the quality of your friend? Do you have at least a handful of people in your life that you can share your life with, warts and all your true honest feelings, and feel nourished, not feel judged or taken away, anything taken away from you? 1 to 10, how are those?
So I've done my score. I can see there's some outstanding work for me to be do on this. Nutrition, obviously I can get some more greens in there. But if I'm going to be motivated to make some change, to give up some of the stuff that I snack on, what's the upside? What kind of benefit to getting a more positive attitude? I know you shared with me some great studies about physical, mental, emotional studies from Harvard, UC Davis. So if you'd share a little bit, what's the benefit?
Let me, if I can, go back, because I gave you 5. There's one more thing, and that's the 6th one is attitude. It's how's my attitude? And that really is a matter of, am I okay giving up control over everything in life? Do I have a confidence that life will work out even without my dominance? And what's my faith? Do I have faith that life is a good place, that I'm connected in life, that I deserve to be here? So that's the other thing.
And if I'm going to make a change in how I operate in the world, what's the upside?
So the upside of change, there's study after study that very convincingly shows that attitude is so important for our own outcomes. So one study from Duke University showed, for example, that optimism and curiosity, two different studies, but one showed optimism, one was just looking at curiosity. The people who scored in the highest quartile for optimism, curiosity, another study looking at just gratitude in life, those people had all less chronic disease, at least 30 to 50% less chronic disease from any source, and 50% less all-cause mortality. Another study looked at people that were 80 years of age, and they just looked at purpose in life. And those people who had the greatest purpose in life, self-proclaimed on this survey, 80%, they had 2.4 times less Alzheimer's disease and 30% less dementia. How's that? And 50% less all-cause mortality, dying from any cause at all, just from the way they position their brain to think.
So you're selling me now. I think I would ascribe to the program. How do I go about changing my attitude, my orientation?
Well, I think the first thing I always say, if you really want to change something, if you want to improve something in your life by making a change in habit or something, first you really have to want to. And there are a lot of people that would like the end result, but not so much that they're willing to pay the price to get there. There's a good book written about just the difference between interest and commitment. So somebody who's committed to exercise will get up there and exercise just like they planned every day. The person who's just interested in it, when it rains, they'll stay in bed. You know, the person who's committed, they get on their raincoat and they go on out and they walk anyway. So there's a difference between interest and commitment. And I think the first thing is really being sure what you want to achieve, what your goals are. And if you really want to be successful in changing those habits, the most successful thing I think that's the key core ingredient for all is finding your purpose. Why do you want to make that change? It's the meaning of the change to your life and the purpose you have behind it that will really be the biggest determining factor in whether you're going to be successful. Because habits are hard to change. And if you have the goal in your mind, I'll give you an example. I had a fellow, he needed to lose 50 pounds because he just was overweight, had hypertension, cardiovascular disease, and year over year, he just couldn't do it. Just couldn't lose that 50 pounds. And then one day, his daughter called him up and said she had a kidney disease and she needed a kidney transplant. And they wanted to see if he was a potential donor. And so he donated blood. They found out that he was the only match in her life of all the people that she checked. The only possible donor was her dad. He couldn't lose the weight. He tried for years. Once he found out that his daughter needed his kidney, in 6 months, he lost 50 pounds. When you have a purpose and a meaning behind your goal, that makes all the difference in the world in your willingness to pay the price to get there.
And that's a powerful one, very powerful example. So that's the path in terms of how to go about it. Obviously in life, there is going to be roadblocks, there'll be challenges. There's times that emotions come to play currently, uncertainty in the world. So inevitably there'll be those challenges. How do we take that on?
I think there's a lot of ways to take that on, and there's no one size fits all for everybody. But first, I think it boils down to having a definite set of here's where I am, here's where I'd like to be, and here's my road to get there. So I've got a very practical, written down, well understood, objectively measurable path. And I've got key indicators of success. So we here, for example, in our office, we say to people, we're going to make a business plan out of your wellness life. You wouldn't run a business just by hoping it'll succeed or expecting it to, because it's always succeeded in the past. You've got a business plan. You've got, if you've got a crisis on your hands, you've got a projected plan to deal with that. You've got key indicators, so you know when you're going to measure them and what the measurables are going to be. And if you're not hitting your target, you're going to have an action plan to change that. And then you surround yourself with people that can help you. You get experts, you get consultants, you get coaches, you get people that can nourish your spirit all the way through, and you ask for help. And if you have all those things going for you, you're much more likely to be successful than if you just, I'd like to do it, and I think I will, I'm going to try and lean into it. Really hard habits are not easily changed by leaning into it. You have to have a wholesale change. You got to really fully fire yourself up make it change, decide what you're going to do, and throw yourself 100% into that change. Otherwise, chances of success, not so great.
I appreciate that. I was thinking about the Yogi Berra quote that you and I were talking about, and it was something like, if you don't have a plan or a purpose, any road will take you there.
Sure.
So I'm hearing having a clear path and direction and going after it.
If you don't know where you're going, any road will get you there.
There you go. Thank you.
If you've got I tell this, we do a lot of work with addiction, and in recovery programs, it's much more healthy and much more effective to already have your answer. In other words, when this comes up, I'm going to pre-think it. And when somebody offers me something, I've already got the reason why I'm going to say no. And I've got my plan of action. I'm not waiting just till it comes to decide what to do. I'm going to decide beforehand. And then I'm going to be mindful of my choices as those things come up and face me in my life.
So one of the things,
go ahead.
One of the things we talked about is, how do you strengthen it at times? How do you develop it and integrate it as a life practice?
And that you said the word, it's practice. What happens is our brain actually changes as we change our attitude and our practice. And we used to think, for example, that thoughts and feelings were really not under our control. That's just kind of who I am. Not true. What we found now with brain study is that actually we can choose our feeling state. A feeling state, for example, Harvard studies have shown that happiness is a physical state that can be induced in the brain by electrical activity. I can take off your calvarium in neurosurgery and stimulate a certain part of your brain, and I can induce, if you're awake, which can be happening, a state actually of joy and happiness and fulfillment just by stimulating that part of your brain. So what we find is that people can do that for themselves. Most people give away their feeling state to the world. I feel this way. You made me mad. You made me angry. How could I feel that way or do that when you treated me like that? The trick is to take back control of your own brain neurochemistry. Choose your choice of feelings. And when you do that and you practice that day in, day out for a period of time, in as little as 2 weeks, you can actually change synaptic connections in your brain, and you can rewire your brain for success. But it takes practice and commitment to do it on a regular basis.
I'm very thankful to hear that I don't have to go through neurosurgery to find a path to happiness. I'm relieved at that.
Yeah, no, you don't.
How would I explain this to my partner, my children, a friend? How do I explain kind of this approach?
I think the key thing probably is just to help people understand you can choose who you are. This whole field of epigenetics is the thing that I think is the most fabulous new science that we have. And basically what it says is this: our DNA is not our destiny. Our DNA actually is only responsible for about 15% of how long we live, and less than that, how well we live. So by our choices, we can determine our outcome and actually the expression of our genes. So we used to think that based on our genes, we're just victims of our genes, and we're all fat in my family, or none of us are good athletes, or I can't paint and draw because I'm just not artistic. No, what we're finding is that you can actually choose to do certain behaviors, think certain thoughts, and you can rewire your brain, and you can become more of whatever you'd like to be just by practicing what you think you'd like to be. And so it takes, again, a plan, it takes coaching, it takes optimism. Studies after study, again, show that just the most optimistic people are the ones who succeed. So having I'm a victim, I just can't do it mentality is it's just a road to not being successful. As a doctor, I open the door to the patient and I look at them, and within 30 seconds, I can usually tell how they're going to do 2 weeks from now based on their attitude when they greet me. It's just amazing how much that plays into it.
In everyday life, what would you recommend to enhance positivity, deepen into it? Any suggestions?
Yeah, I think there are some definite things. First is, here's something that most people, and I'm amazed how many people don't do this. Write down what is not only your purpose in life, but what's your greatest gift to give to life back? Who are you as a person, right? What's your life mission? That's the goal. Write down, and this isn't just a casual thought. I think this takes a fair amount of deep thinking, but what is your purpose in life? my own personal view is we all have one gift to give back to life, and that's the gift to give to life our full unbastardized self, our full self, all we can truly be. Somebody said once that the greatest detriment in life, the greatest takeaway of life that's negative, is not being able to give your greatest gifts to those you love the most. Mm. To do that, you have to know what your gifts are. So what is your purpose and passion? What's your mission in life? Think about that. And how are you going to portray that mission? If you have that in mind, then you can think about, okay, what do I need to do to get there? And what's my action plan again? And what I like to have people do is write down a personal action plan for them. One thing I'd like people to do maybe right now is think of those 6 things we mentioned: exercise, nutrition, stress, relationships, sleep, and then attitude. If you could change one of those things, just one, and you had a magic wand, in the next 90 days, you could be totally different in that aspect of your life, which one thing would make the biggest difference to your happiness, your fulfillment, and the way you feel about your day-to-day existence? And just think about that one thing. And maybe just close your eyes for a minute and just think about, if I could change that one thing in my life, and I did change it over the next 90 days, creating new synaptic connections in my brain, and I was consistent at doing it, how would that look and feel to me 6 months to 9 months from now, even a year from now? How would I be different? And how would that difference that I've made by my choice of behaviors impact the quality of my life? How would I feel about it? How would I show up in my life? How would I appear to other people in my life? How could the usefulness of my life be better? All those things, if I was successful in doing what I know I could do, who could I be? And what would the meaning of that be for me and those people that I love the most? If you just think about that, the next thing is you think, okay, if I've got control over that and I can actually do it, and I want to do it, and it would make that meaning to me in my life, what am I waiting for? Why don't I start today? So your next thing is to write down 3 things that if you chose to make that change starting this week, what are 3 action items that you could actually start doing this week to start the process of that change? And why not, right? This is all we have. The Buddha said one time, the biggest problem is we think we have time. We never know how much time we have, but we've got today. So let's take care of today.
That's excellent. It allows us to connect to being active subjects and responsible for how we live our lives. Mm-hmm. I see it different. I want to take a few minutes because I know our time is going. There's questions that my body needs major TLC. How do I go about that?
Well, I think that, again, it's the attorney's answer. Well, that depends. Depends on how your body needs TLC. What kind of TLC does your body need? Does it need losing weight? Does it need better flexibility? Does it need more strength? Does it need more coordination? So I think the first thing is to find out what. So any kind of a change, probably what I would suggest you do is go to an exercise physiologist, a physician who specializes in TLC for bodies, somebody in sports medicine, for example, and find out what are the parameters that relate to how you feel and what are the things that you can change. How fit are you? Maybe you need a treadmill to see how you are under stress. Maybe you need to check your strength and flexibility. And then you need a program to have somebody who's an expert in that field guide you. What's the first step you can take without becoming injured and overdoing it to allow yourself to gradually have that change? So the first thing is to get information, get an objective plan, and then invest yourself in an intelligent plan with help and with monitoring and with a coach.
Excellent. There's a question, is it possible to do a self-motivational interview? How do I sleep better?
We say to people, stop counting sheep, count blessings. I think if you want to sleep better, I would Google sleep hygiene. If you really want to know how to sleep better, for example, sleep hygiene is a whole new field now that tells people all the things that go into preparing yourself well to sleep, mind, body-wise, but also preparing the room, preparing the temperature, preparing the bedding, the lighting, all that. Most people don't sleep well because of unhandled stress during the day. And so we have one patient that has a God box. And she says, I just write down all my problems of the day that I'm worried about when I go to bed. And I write them down and I put them in that box, and I expect God to just hold it at night for me, and he'll give it back to me in the morning. So you don't have to handle them all night long. So sleep hygiene, instead of counting sheep, count gratitudes. I like everybody to make a gratitude journal. To go to bed, the last 30 minutes to actually 2 hours, but progressively, the last 30 minutes of your day and night should be not something very stimulating, something very relaxing. And one of the nicest things to do is thank somebody for something, feel the gratitude you feel, and have a journal and write down 3 things that you're grateful for right before you go to bed. And that focuses your brain on healthy, positive thoughts, not negative thoughts. That really can be useful. The other thing I like people to do, when they wake up first thing in the morning, that's a great time to do some self-reflection and meditation. People that meditate in the morning tell me almost always without fail it's the most valuable part of their whole day, because they set themselves up for how they're going to experience their day. Ask yourself this question when you wake up in the morning. If I was going to be my best self today, my really best self with my very best values and be the person I could be, how would I act? How would I feel? How would I go through my day? How would I affect problems? And how would I treat other people?
That's excellent, because it goes to one of the questions that came in. It's powerful to know that I have the choice to be happy. How do I remember to make that choice when I go through my day? Affirmation, self-talk, audio talk. So you're speaking to that there. There's another question that I love. Do you feel the act as if works? The whole concept of fake it till you make it.
You know what? I'll tell you what, that's a great story. And thank you for asking that question in that way. They did a wonderful study of actors. And they took actors, they said, okay, what we want you to do is we want you to act like you're angry, and you act like you're afraid, and you act like you're in love, and you act like you're frustrated as heck, and you act like you're depressed. And then they measured through PET scans and EEGs, brain waves and lighting up parts of the brain of each one of those people acting those thoughts and behaviors. And then they took people who actually were experiencing that for real, and then they gave those results, those imaging studies and those EEGs, to experts, neurologic and radiologic experts. The experts couldn't tell the difference between the people who were faking it and the people who were really there. So the fake it until you make it is actually true. If you want to be happy, act happy. If you want to be in love, act like you're in love, and eventually the neurochemicals of love or feelings will actually come. So if you actually pretend like you're there, eventually, chemically, you will be there, and all of a sudden, you're there naturally.
There's a great question, and really a request for maybe, Lee, another time doing just one of these, and even deeper on life purpose and meaning. There has been several that have asked if you could go through that list of 7 that we should be looking at as self-assessment and reflection moving forward.
If I could do that, what's the question again?
Just the 7 areas that you spoke to in the beginning: exercise, nutrition.
Did I go through them? Just
Please.
name them again?
Yeah, please.
Yeah. So exercise, nutrition, stress management, sleep, relationships, and attitude, which is really spirituality. If you really want to ask which is the most important of all those, I would say start with spirituality. It's really about attitude and how I choose to allow myself to feel about myself. Self-love. Am I willing to give myself self-love? And am I willing to assume that I'm a useful, worthwhile, valuable person just because I'm here, not because of what I do or what I achieve or what I accomplish, just because I am. I'm lovable, I'm worthwhile, and I'm worthy of intimacy, even with myself.
Lee, I really appreciate you gifting us your expertise, insight, and wisdom today. Any final comments, as well as I'd like you to have a chance to speak to your website and where resources can be found?
Sure. If you give me about 1 minute, I'll tell you of an experience that I had with a 6th grader that changed my attitude. Can you see this jar? This is a jar. It's probably hard to tell even what this jar is because the light's not shining through it. But it's just a little jam jar with a little cool thing that he made on top of it, made by Camden, the 6th grader. At the end of the 6th grade class I gave a couple of years ago on wellness and mind-body control, the teacher said, Dr. Rice, I'd like you just to experience about a 10-minute drill that we all do at the end of each day. This is 6th grade class. And she says, Camden, would you be willing to lead it? He says, yes, I would, teacher. So everybody got around in a circle, and Camden put this jar in the middle of the circle. We're all sitting now in a circle on the floor. And all these kids for the half hour preceding this were yelling and screaming and interrupting each other and not listening to anybody. And it was really hard to get anybody's attention. He said, now everybody, and they all had made these, so they all knew what they were. It's just like a soapy solution with little sparkles in it. He said, he put this in the middle of everybody. And he said, now just watch the sparkles as they settle down to the ground. I want everybody just to start breathing slowly, take a deep breath and let it out. And as you let it out, look at those little sparkles settled by gravity to the ground and just let your stress just go on out. He says, now that your stress is a little bit less, he says, I want you to think about something that didn't go so well today. Something that just frustrated you or made you sad or afraid. Think how that made you feel when it happened. I'd like you to take a big breath, and as you take that feeling you had inside of you when that thing happened, just let that feeling go out and just blow that feeling away out of your body. So everybody goes, big breath. He says, now just blow that out. Everybody goes. He says, now I want you to close your eyes and picture in your mind these little particles going to the bottom and your stress being out. And picture yourself in your happy place. Wherever that happy place is for you, I want you just to think about yourself and put yourself in your happy place. And think about how good it feels to be in your happy place. And how relaxed you are, and how grateful you are to be there. What joy you have in that space. And just how wonderful you feel as a human being with other people sitting there in your happy space, right where you love to be. Just give yourself 20 seconds now to think about that place. And I'm not going to say anything. You just picture yourself in your happy place and be there. Now, he said, just, I want you to open your eyes and feel that feeling of being in that happy place. As you go home today to your parents and the rest of your life, take that feeling with you as you go. 6th grade Camden.
Well, 6th grade or the Colopy household, I think my wife and my daughter and puppy will benefit from what you just offered, and hopefully many others as well. Lee's website is leerice@sdsm.com.
It's L. Rice.
One more time?
It's L. Rice.
L. Rice, thank you. lrice@sdsm.com. Please leave your comments and questions so that we can follow up with you. Thank you for your time. Come join us on our next conversation. Everyone be well.
It's a privilege to be with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Lee.